The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. One day telleth another, and one night certifieth another. There is neither speech nor language, but their voices are heard among them. Their sound is gone out into all the lands, and their words into the ends of the earth. In them hath he set a tabernacle for the sun, which cometh forth as a bridegroom out of his chamber, and rejoiceth as a giant to run his course. It goeth forth from the uttermost part of the heaven, and runneth about unto the end of it again, and there is nothing hid from the heat thereof. The law of the Lord is an undefiled law, converting the soul. The testimony of the Lord is sure, and giveth wisdom unto the simple. The statutes of the Lord are right, and rejoiceth the heart. The commandment of the Lord is pure, and giveth light unto the eyes. The fear of the Lord is clean, and endureth forever. The judgments of the Lord are true, and righteousness altogether. More to be desired are they than gold, yea, than much fine gold, sweeter also than honey and the honeycomb. Moreover, by them is thy servant taught, and in keeping of them there is great reward. Who can tell how oft he offendeth? O cleanse thou me from my secret faults. Keep thy servant also from presumptuousness sins, lest they get the dominion over me. So shall I be undefiled and innocent from the great offence. Let the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be always acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Peace be with you guys. How we doing, Santi? How we doing, Knight? How we doing, Daenerys? How we doing, Rob? How we doing, Solo, Marek, Tracy, and Dragona? Good morning, good evening, good night, wherever you are in the world. Just a few notices while people are still coming in. The first thing is just to say a thank you, probably long overdue. Every now and then I sort of, well, I do acknowledge the fact that I've got people supporting me and helping me out in different things. You know, I've got people who are helping on the admin. I've got people who are helping on the YouTube channel. I've got covenant partners who are funding me, which now allow me to go part-time doing this kind of thing. And then I've got, you know, 1,000,001 people of goodwill who, you know, send in resources, send in information that I might have missed, or, you know, offer helpful corrections, encouragements. You know, Nada is a prime example, an embodiment of the rest, whose consistency and support has been a great blessing to me. And I want to just take a moment to acknowledge that and to say thank you very much to everyone and anyone who's helped in large and in small ways, whether that's sharing a video, making sure that you hit the like button, subscribing, telling other people about what we're doing. Nada, I just want to encourage you, sister, because I know you're there, if you can share the blog rather than the PayPal, because guys, I'm shutting down the PayPal, and I'm moving. Those that want to support and bless me financially can do so either via the blog or via Patreon, whichever you prefer. So today, guys, I thought I would do things a little different. But I'm going to give you a vote on it. So if you want me to follow the usual format where I talk on a couple of topics and then invite questions and try to get through as many of your questions, when the option comes, press 1. However, alternatively, what I'd like to do is to start doing a series on radical questions for Christians, and invite people. I'll lay out a topic, and then I'll invite Christians to come in and talk about a particular topic and discuss it. So today, the radical questions that we would talk about are whether we should seek to establish another Christendom globally, how and why and if we should abandon the idea of denominations completely, and whether we should abandon the Sunday model of doing church in favor of what I'm terming the Antioch community model of doing church. So if you would like to do the usual format of, I'll talk about a couple of topics and then we'll do questions, press 1. If you would like to do the discussion panel where I invite people in and we talk about 3 topics, I've picked 3, but we could do more, press 2. So if you can cast your vote, guys, in the chat so I can see how people want this to go. Just while you are doing that, I will ramble on about stuff whilst you cast your vote on those 2 things. I think 2 is looking the stronger option. I think one of the things that has really struck me about the news coverage is that Christians in Nigeria now for years have been suffering persecution by Islamist groups and herdsmen that are allied to those Islamist groups, and they've been in some places murdered in their thousands, often in their hundreds, and we don't hear about it in the news. No one talks about it. It's not an issue. The Black Lives Matter people are silent about it. The liberal elites are silent about it. And too many Christians are silent about it. And yet the BBC today has pushed forward, because of a lobbyist group, have covered the lobbyist group in pushing that the courts in the UK can declare countries having committed genocide and thus having stopped, seeking to stop the UK from doing trade with them. And they mentioned the Uyghur Muslims in China. Incidentally, Christians in China are suffering from regularly, daily and persistent persecution. And Christians were at the forefront of organizing the democratic protests in Hong Kong. And yet the BBC won't talk about these kinds of issues. And I think that there's more than enough blame to go around. Certainly it exposes the hypocrisy of the liberals in that they talk about their idea of the value of human beings. But it would seem that if you're a Christian, and especially if you're a black Christian, your life is not worth as much to the BBC editors as, say, a Chinese Muslim. But I think there's also blame to go around, and maybe not for you guys. I suspect many of you guys, I hope many of you guys are very vocal about the persecuted church. But a large part of this blame falls on Christians, because Christians were willing to protest for and against Trump. Christians were willing to protest for and against the BLM agenda. But yet, how many times have those same Christians gone onto the street to raise awareness about the persecution of our brothers and sisters? We need to change the way that we think. We need to change the way that we do things. And I would encourage all of you to get involved with the delicensing of the BBC. If you can, stop paying your TV license. I live in a communal house, so I pay my bill to the people that run the house, and they pay for the license. However, if it's my choice, we wouldn't have one. I'd get rid of it. So, if you can, get rid of the TV license in your homes, get involved in campaigns to de-license the BBC, because you're essentially just paying for left-wing, liberal, progressive propaganda. And why should we subsidize progressives in paying for their propaganda? Make it a subscription service, and then have people who want to support it, who want to pay for that left-wing narrative, they'll be able to do so. And those of us that don't, we don't have to. Same principles along with halal meat. Just make it labeled so that those people that want it can have it. Make it obligatory to label it so that those people that can have it can do so, and that those people who can't, who don't want to, don't have to eat it in secret. It is being forced down the necks of non-Muslim children in lots of schools. If you've got a child in a school, go and find out whether they are feeding your child halal meat. And if you have an objection to that, organize yourselves and make a voice. Don't be passive, Christians. That is the reason why we have been losing for so long, because we're passive. So I was looking whilst we were all talking at the vote, and it seemed that number 2 came out ahead of all the others. So I've thought of another topic while we were talking. We're going to talk about why we should object to the adan, or objections to the adan. And I'm going to frame each conversation before I invite in a panel. Then we'll talk about it. If someone starts rambling incoherent nonsense, getting off topic, trying to change the topic, they'll be removed. I might let someone else in. And then at the end of each segment, that panel will leave, all of them. And then I'll introduce the next topic, and I'll open it up for a panel to reassemble to talk about the next topic. If you talked in the first panel, you're more than welcome to come back in the second if you want to, but you don't have to. But again, anyone who's rambling incoherent nonsense, if you are just talking gibberish, or you are uneducated on a particular topic and you're trying to change the topic onto something different, then you'll just be removed. Okay, guys, so the first topic that we're going to talk about is that Christians, this is the question, Christians should recommit to the establishment or the re-establishment of Christendom, not just in Europe, but around the world. So that's the topic that you're invited to come in and talk about. Let me just frame it for you. So Christendom was the political vision, the political enterprise that emerged from the 4th century in Western Latin Christianity. At the collapse of the Roman Empire, under barbarian hordes that were majority Arian or pagan, the Roman Church became separated from the political homogeny of the Eastern Roman Empire, which continued to survive right up until the 15th century. And the Roman Church, isolated, then started doing mission and evangelizing, and started creating its own political alliances, which eventually gave birth to what was called the Holy Roman Empire, much to the offense of the Byzantines. Now, what that then developed into was this idea of a united political entity in different kingdoms of Christians who had not just an identity connected to the land in which they were born, but a religious identity. And there was a relationship between the state that was ruled by some kind of king or queen and the Pope, who was the religious ruler of the church. Now, I'm not a reactionary. I don't believe in just trying to recreate the past in the present. That's what ISIS tried to do, and they're idiots, and that's not what I'm encouraging all of us to be. So what would Christendom look like in the 21st century? It would be that, Christians, through democratic means, where democratic means are possible, establish a Christian presence within every part of the state. so that the body of Christ is not just ruling the ecclesiam, the church, but it's ruling the secular realm, which is the institutions of the state, so that the Christian narrative and is the driving force behind the backdrop to all movements within society and civilization. The projection of civilization is guided by a Christian compass, and that Christians lead in areas of economy, areas of political power, or politics, because that also includes authority and influence. That Christians lead in the fashioning and guidance of culture and cultural norms, that we lead in the arts, entertainment, and that we also lead in the area of information sharing. So that's things like Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, the education system, the newspapers, the news agencies. So this is how, what a Christendom of the 21st century would look like. And it would lead to a similar confederacy of nations, in the sense that all Christians would have a loyalty and fidelity to other Christian nations. And where one of those Christian nations was under attack, other Christian nations would come and help them, in the same way that Christian nations were motivated during the Crusades to fight against Islamic invasion, aggression, oppression, and persecution. So that's the sort of general introduction to the question. I'm now going to invite in a panel. I'm going to open up this for people to come in. So if you have if you've just got a question and you don't have a comment, before I release it, I'll just explain. So if you can come in, and you can come in and have a discussion, and that's fine. If you just want to come in and ask a question, that's also fine. But then after you've asked your question, you can leave. If you want to come in and just give one point, you can do that. But again, you'll leave. If you want to come in, sit in and talk, that's also fine. I'll let in as many people as I think is manageable. So it may be the case that you try to get in and you won't be able to get in if I think there's too many people. But we'll see how it goes. This is the first time I've tried it. So if you'd like to come in and talk on Christendom, please click on the link and join the conversation. So just talking a little bit more about that whilst people queue up. I'm not going to let you in immediately. I'm just going to let a couple of people in at a time. So if you want to come in, please do. And perhaps, guys, I just need to remind everyone that the way we're doing today is different. So we're not doing questions in the way that I've done in the past. We're talking about radical questions, and we're inviting a panel. And I've released the link. I'll just release it again. So we're talking about Christendom. Let me explain why I think that it's biblical. It's biblical because we every day a Christian prays the Our Father. Hopefully you're praying it more than once a day, but Christians should be praying the Our Father, and in so doing they are saying that I see your power electronics, I'll let you in shortly. They are saying, thy kingdom come, thy will be done. The point of the New Testament narrative isn't that we Christians are being saved so that we can go to heaven. The point of the New Testament narrative is that we are saved so that we can bring heaven to earth, which means that Christians are about the project of civilization. We are about the project of reworking society to a Christian direction. And that's why we need to do this. So going to let in people to come in and talk. Welcome, False Prophet and Power Electronics. So what are your thoughts, guys?
Well, good day. My name is Jason, actually. It's not Power Electronics. I didn't edit my name on the screen there, but yeah, my name's Jason, and I would like to ask you a question. What do you think of the Old Testament Isaiah 66, verse 1 to 7.
Is that connected to the topic we're talking about?
Yes, it is. It's about
What's the topic
bringing
we're
heaven
talking
to
about?
earth.
What's the topic we're talking about?
Well, it's salvation.
No, that's not the topic we're talking about, bro. So
Not.
no, it's not. I'll just explain what the topic is, and then you can decide whether you want to stay on or not. So we're talking about whether Christians should commit to the re-establishment of Christendom, or a Christendom project, a political vision of society where we create a Christian civilization across the world. Do you want to stay on to that?
Yes. I believe that.
So let's talk about that then.
Well, I read my Bible a lot, but I don't read in English as my native tongue is Afrikaans. So I read in Afrikaans. But in Isaiah 43, I think there's mention of that everyone of the whole world, across the whole world, must come together and establish Christendom as a whole.
Okay, what verse and passage? Do you want to find that while I just let some other people in? Do you want to find that in your scripture? Prophet, you were up next, so do you want to come in on the topic?
Sure. I was under the assumption that this was a Q&A, and I kind of thought that you were speaking about Muslim topics, and I had something that I wanted to share, but
yeah. So do you want to come out then? Because we're not talking about that today. I mean, you probably came late, so you didn't hear me explain it at the beginning. But
yeah, I came kind of late.
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll take you out then. Have a lovely day, and maybe come back in when we get on to talking about the adan. Right, Michael Solomon, what do you got to say on the topic?
Hey, Bob. I like the idea of a Christendom where our values are definitely at the forefront. With a cautionary that it's a great idea, but when it comes to that, how do we choose our leaders? How do we choose, what legislation we put into effect? That would be my concern.
Okay, so let me address that point then, because I think it's a really valid point. I'm sure you'll agree with me that in terms of political structures, the church has traveled through many political structures over 2,000 years. We were born into the Roman Empire. Then certainly, in the East, they lived under the domination of Islamic caliphates before finding freedom, and then going straight into sort of national democracies before then enduring communist dictatorship. Whereas in the West, the Roman Empire crumbled, then kingdoms emerged, which were feudal, and that was the majority of our history. And then we restricted and abolished many of the monarchies. So this is so what I'm saying by that is that Christians are not restricted to any particular political structure. And so we can use the political structures at hand. So I'm saying that we should fully participate in a democracy, and we should seek through democratic means to establish the project of Christendom. And that means that what we would do is we would elect our leaders. And when Christians are in a position that we are the majority and we are the ones controlling society, we can then restrict the kinds of, we can then use the same kind of tools that the elites have used to suppress minority politics today against the progressives, against the communists, against the Nazis, against the Islamists, so that you wouldn't ban them, but you would use all the tools available to you to keep them held down. Any thoughts on that before I let in Rob?
Yeah, I mean, excuse me.
No, you can go on.
Well, yeah, my thoughts on this is that I think that any leader that we choose or elect into a position of power and legislation should be, I would say, wise as our church fathers that that were there at the very beginning, the followers of Christ, the apostles. That type of knowledge, I think, would be essential in a leader of Christendom. Also, I have a concern as far as to when you talk about an ideology that is in direct opposition of ideology of Christendom, how do you then suppress that? One that, say, is political as well as religious.
Okay, so before I come back on that, I'll let Rob jump in.
Sure, thank you.
Rob? Okay, Rob is not here. So
can I say something?
Yeah, jump in.
Well, it's doing with the topic. It's in the passage Isaiah 43, verse 1 until 8.
Do you want to read it?
Well, it's in Afrikaans. I can't
read
translate
it in Afrikaans.
now.
Everyone can
read it in Afrikaans.
Give us the passage, and everyone can read it in their Bible. You can read it in Afrikaans. We're not Muslims. Every language is equal in the in Christendom. So what is it? 43.
Yes, Isaiah 43.
Verses
1 to 8.
That's quite a long passage.
It's not that long.
Okay, so let's, for sake of clarity, can you make your point from it, and then people can decide?
It's talking about the people that God formed in His image, like the people that God formed Himself. That the people from the north and the south is giving to each other. They're not selfish. They working together to fight Christendom, like it's established in the world for everyone. That everyone that has eyes but are blind and has ears that are deaf, they will know the truth.
Okay, and I mean, as I'm reading it, like I got down to about verse 4. There is definitely the need for Christians to rediscover solidarity with one another. I think one of the problems that we're facing at the moment is that, because too many Christians think ethnically or nationalistically, we don't see.
I'm one of those.
Let me finish, Jason. Because Christians think nationally or ethnically, we see the murder of Assyrian Christians as a problem somewhere else, or the murder of Coptic Christians as a problem somewhere else, or the murder of Filipino Christians or Karen Christians as a problem, someone else's problem. And I think as Christians, we've got to see that as our problem, not as someone else's problem. That's a problem that we have to solve.
I believe that full-heartedly, because if you go read in the New Testament in where is it now? It's Matthew 23 verse 9. It says that people shouldn't actually be called Father, because we Christians have one Father who art in heaven.
How is that connected to the topic?
Well, if you go read the 10 Commandments, it's making no idols to yourself. And when you call a man on earth Father, you're literally creating an idol for yourself.
Well, I think the idol that we face, and I want to come back to Michael's question, and then I'd encourage you guys to start doing more free flow conversation, because I don't want to control it that much. So, Michael, do you just want to come back to what's your question again? The last one you asked.
Well, there were some things said, and I was kind of wanted to respond to that, if that's okay.
Yeah, please. Yeah, go for it. Absolutely.
Okay. So the thought process of Christians being killed in Egypt and the Philippines and Afghanistan, and we can go on and on and on and on. And it is our responsibility to uplift and protect those Christian brothers and sisters. You're absolutely right. And I think the reason why it is not being done is because then we have to put skin in the game. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
That we have to, as a nation or a collection of nations, then we're taking on the responsibility. It's kind of like taking a monkey and putting it on your back, and nobody wants to take care of a monkey. I mean, a monkey on your back's got to be fed, and the diapers got to be changed, and they got to be played with, and all these other things. So I think it's a lack of commitment to protect our brothers and sisters is why it's not being done.
So I would say back to that, Michael, that why can't we just do that as the body of Christ? Why do we have to wait for a nation state?
Yeah,
why can't we organize ourselves to do that? You know,
I don't believe in race. I believe we are one human race, because if you go read Acts of the Apostles 17, verse 26, it says Jesus made every nation in one blood.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, his blood.
So, yes, so every nation is.
That's talking about the church. It's talking about the church. So this is
in response to your question, if I may.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So in response to your question, why don't we do that as a church body? That's a great question, and I think it has great merit in the fact that we can do that in different ways. We could financially contribute to, say, like maybe a Christian bank that could then provide maybe, and I don't want to get too militaristic or anything, or maybe arms or training for those people to defend themselves, or maybe even, and this is getting kind of way out there, and I apologize if I'm kind of getting out on a branch here, but I mean, there's plenty of mercenaries in the world that would take pay to protect those people if it came to that.
Legally, that's the point. There is a legal option for the church, and it's using the available laws. It's working within available laws. So, and mercenaries are the legal framework into which something like that could be done.
Okay.
You know, so I mean, it's a lot more complicated than that. And if any Christian felt called to sort of push that whole thing forward, you know, they'd have to figure out the details. But all I'm saying is that we're not optionless. Even if the nation states don't want to help the church, we as Christians still can, through using existing legal frameworks. But you know, solidarity for the persecuted church is one aspect of Christendom. I'm essentially talking about the idea that we as Christians should come to dominate, have dominion in politics, knowledge sharing, economy, arts, you know, and all the other aspects of society, and that we should drive society forward from a Christian narrative. Rob, feel free to jump in at any time, bro.
Yeah, sorry, I was bad internet. Hi, everyone. Right. So I just want to. I mean, I'm in agreement with everyone that's here that a Christian solution is the universal solution. So there's no issue there. And this is a really interesting topic. You've had the intellectual dark web discussing a framework that the Christian idea would fit in. You even had people like Sargon of Akkad a while ago was talking about two parliaments, a political parliament and then a social parliament. And that obviously the social parliament is the Christian one or a religious one. So my ideas, I don't know what you guys think, is that it's not about setting up a political party, but a cultural, spiritual kind of contract, you know, like, and even taking from the left, you know, the liberal social side, how well it works would be, you know, like a WWF sign, or that if a party or a group agree to this social, political, religious contract, then that's part of their brand. You could be a Labour Party, a Conservative Party, etc. But if you've got that tick, you know, the blue check mark tick from the church, from this assembly, then that would be a great carrier, because then you're not looking for political centralized domination in Africa, South America. They can be whatever their social, political situation is, but they they are absolutely stating that universally we're looking for the same solution. So that was my sort of grand idea, like that I've seen people.
I think there hasn't been in the church. There hasn't been a commitment to a political vision since the peace of Westphalia. The civil war fought between Christians in Western Europe, between Reformed Christians and Roman Christians, scandalized the church for the longest possible time, and also scandalized Western Europe for the longest possible time. And obviously America is the birth child of Western Europe, to the idea that Christians can have a political vision and a political project. And I think that there isn't one way of organizing that. You know, the church, the scriptures only ever talks about one political structure, which is a monarchy, but it doesn't say that a monarchy is sacred. In fact, when Israel wanted a king, God said, "This ain't going to work out for you guys, but I'll give you one because you're hard-hearted and stubborn." But
David?
No, it was Solomon. So as Chris, no, it was Saul. Sorry, Boy Plus. If you want to jump in, you don't need to wait for permission, guys. But I think as Christians, there isn't one way of doing it. I want to come back to something that Michael said, which was this idea of the wisdom of the church fathers. Most democracies have two houses. In America, you got the Senate, and then you've got the other one, whatever that is, the governors. What? Sorry.
We in South Africa have a democracy, and we have like.
Sorry, just 1 minute, bro. Just 1 minute, bro. You got two houses, and I think that one of those houses should be filled with intellectuals, scholars, bishops as the moderating factor to the elected politicians. So go on, electronics.
Well,
that's interesting.
I want to ask you guys, what do you think the church is? Because I know for a fact God doesn't live in buildings that were built with human hands.
Electronics, I'm sorry, bro, but every time that you've spoke, I don't see how you're connecting to the topic. The topic is Christendom and the political vision of Christendom. So either get onto topic, or I'm going to ask you to make way for someone else. Boy Plus, do you want to say anything?
Yes, I want to say something.
Go on, Bless.
Yeah, in the beginning, you mentioned about Christians being massacred in Nigeria.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the topic is about Christendom compiled with the political happening in anywhere. Yeah, I think this is not a new question or a new topic, because in the 60s, during the civil war in Nigeria, the cause of the civil war and the end of it, it's a Christian against Christian. It's a British government against the Biafrans, which is Christian.
I know that. I know you.
100% of Christians, So I don't think that we should combine politics with religion. But because if we do it, every one of us are guilty of the life of Christian brothers and sisters.
Sure. So I'll reply to that, and then if other people want to jump in, they can do, because the thesis is mine. The question is not whether I would throw back at you, Boy Plus, whether you can separate religion and politics, because if you're Boy Plus, let me finish. I would throw back at you that you cannot separate religion and politics. Religion and politics are intertwined, because I'm a political agent. Everyone on screen is a political agent. And whether we like it or not, we will practice politics just through making choices about life. Because politics is the operation of power, influence, and authority. That's what politics is. That's the definition of politics. So we can't separate Christianity and politics. I think the problem that you pointed to about the British, the colonial period, and the civil war in Nigeria is an example of the failure of a Christian political narrative, because the British saw themselves as British and the Nigerians saw themselves as belonging to another group, and they weren't talking to one another or interacting with one another as Christians. They didn't think to themselves, I'm a Christian first, interacting with a Christian first. Right, Power, do you want to come back in? Because I cut you off last time. But I want you to be on topic, Power.
Yeah,
sorry. Boy Plus, let Power come in.
I agree with Boy Plus. I come from Africa, and I understand what he's saying. Most Christians are against one another. They don't agree with what the scripture says. They don't agree on God's word.
Okay.
They have different opinions of it.
Yeah, that's true. But I think if we see one another, but you have differences of opinions in families, and you don't suddenly say, because I don't agree with my uncle, he's no longer my uncle. And I think that we need to take that mindset into the church. We might not agree with one another, but that doesn't mean that we have to separate. Anyone else want to come in with a thought?
One thing I think that we as Christians need to start doing a bit more is we do have, at least in Great Britain, I'm just using Great Britain as an example, we do have, say, bishops and what have you in high authority, and with, say, their word carries weight within our political systems, but they don't use it for, say, the betterment of the church. Maybe we should put some more pressure on them to do so, to have our voices heard.
I totally.
This is what we want. Go and say it in Parliament or the House of Lords, whatever,
Totally. I think that our bishops often let us down, to be honest. They don't represent the church at all. Boy Plus, did you want to come back on something that I said?
Yeah, I saw my main point is, since you said politics and religions they are living in symbiosis, so there is no way we can separate it from one another. Yeah, but there is some deadly politics that Christians engage themselves. I mean, when I mean Christians, I mean a group, not a person. Because as a Britain, as a Christian country, should not pray that Lord they prayed in Biafran crisis, Biafran to Nigerian civil war. They should not do it. They should not align with the Russians, promise them the iron mine in Ajokute, so that the Russian will bomb Biafrans. This is a long story.
Okay.
This is so
Boy Plus.
They want to start part of
Boy Plus. Hi.
Yeah.
So I've got three other people that want to come in onto this question. So I'm going to ask Power Electronics and Boy Plus to step aside, so that I can let some more people in.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for your contribution, guys. Take care.
Thank you.
Sure.
Nice to meet you guys.
Nice to meet you too.
So, Boy Plus, if you could just, I don't want to kick you out, that'd be rude. If you could remove yourself.
Yeah, I do. One question is this, Bob.
Go on, ask your question.
If somebody wants to support this we are into now, because it's good for me to express. I've been using PayPal before, but it's not going for me. So if you could establish a link, so that others will be.
Yeah, certainly. There's a blog that I use. Hopefully, Nada will stick up the blog that I use. Soldiers of Christ online, but there's also Patreon as well. Okay, Boy Plus. God bless you, bro. Peace be with you. Take care. Right, let me just bring in some other people who've been waiting patiently. You might mute Samuel. You're gonna have to mute your mic. Sorry, you're gonna have to mute your speaker. Samuel, you're gonna have to mute your speaker.
Hello.
There we go. So let's enkindled. I just want to say that I do see you, Solomon. I will try to get you in a bit. Enkindle, do you want to go next, and then Samuel, and then we'll open it up for free discussion again? Enkindled, here's your chance. We can't hear you, bro. I think you might be on mute. If you just hold back, let Samuel go, and then come back once you've got your speaker sorted out. Samuel?
Yeah, it sounds kind of. I don't know if you.
Okay, we seem to have got a bit of a bad connection with Samuel. We've got a lot of feedback, Samuel. Can you turn down your speaker? Right. Okay. Just going to remove Samuel while he works out his tech. Enkindled, do you want to try again? Enkindled, I reckon.
Connection overall.
Yeah, Enkindled, I'm going to remove you, mate. Sorry, you need to sort out your tech, and then you're more than welcome to come back. Sorry, bro. Okay, Solomon, you're up.
Yeah, so this is about like Christendom. I think, yeah, Christians and politics should be together because I've been thinking one thing. I wanted to start a party in England to call it the Christian Party because I think if we have a Christian party in England, I think we'll do way more better than what conservatives does because I think Christian and politics is together. But what we have to show as a Christian party in England is we need to show love as Jesus taught. You have to be loving and kind. And this is what would win us votes.
So I think that, just to let you know, guys, I don't know, Michael and Rob, where you guys are, if there are a Christian political party, but in the UK, there are already Christian political parties. In the UK, there's one called the Christian, I think it's called the Christian People's Alliance or the Christian Parties Alliance. I think it might have changed its name recently. So I think it's better in some ways to find if there's already something out there rather than trying to start something new. Michael, what are your thoughts? You've been on mute for a while.
Well, it's very interesting. There are quite a few topics that were brought up that I would like to address, maybe piecemeal. First off, when the gentlemen were talking about the Christians versus Christians in Africa, very interesting, and actually gives a lot of weight to the idea of Christendom because, church fathers would be able to sit down with these opposing Christian parties, and whenever church fathers come together and discuss things, the spirit of truth seems to shine through at that point. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think the thing is when Christians discuss things, and this will be relevant to the next topic that we talk about. When Christians discuss things, then you can find at least the parameters of truth. I think when Christians sit down and talk on politics calmly, they end up agreeing at least a lot on certain general themes, and then it's about making sure that they they work within a general prism. It's not that we have to have one dogmatic political answer to every political problem, but so long as we're working from a general Christian political narrative aimed at creating a Christian civilization, then we can affect appropriate change. Rob, again, you're more than welcome to jump in, but just let Journey best. Do you want to unmute yourself and come in, sir? Journey.
Yo, hello.
How are we doing?
Good. Thanks for asking. Listen, my English is not so good. I'm coming from Amsterdam. I just want to bless you guys.
God bless you.
God bless you guys. Happy to see a lot of brothers of me, doing the will of God. And I just want to say, Bob, big fan. I love you, man. I love you and all you guys.
Thank you very much. I love you too, bro.
I love you too. Nice to see you.
Okie dokie, thank you. Do you want to talk about the topic?
Oh, no, I just want to bless you guys, but,
okay.
doing yeah, I'm sorry.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for the love, man.
God bless. Peace be with you, bro. Take care.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Okay, guys. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this topic to a close. Thank you so much for everyone that contributed, long or short. And I think this will probably be if you like this, guys, this will be how the format will go forward. So I'll introduce the next topic. If you could all remove yourselves, please.
Thank you.
Right. So the next topic, guys, is going to be whether Christians should oppose the adan. So the adan is the Islamic call to prayer, and it is a declaration that there is no God but Allah, and that Muhammad is his prophet, and that that prayer is better than sleep, that people should be involved in prayer. And it is very often projected over loudspeakers. And I think that this, by tolerating this, that we give Islam a way to impact people's psychology, to impact people's emotions, and to declare a message into people's homes that lots of people don't agree with. There is no way that I could go into a Muslim area with a loudspeaker and blast out a Christian message without people complaining and without people imposing, or without people seeking the state to stop me. And yet, when we had the lockdown in the beginning of last year, the government allowed the adan to be projected into people's homes through loudspeakers from the minaret. Now, I want to make it clear, I'm not interested in banning the adan. If a Muslim caller wants to go to the top of a minaret and shout out using his own natural lungs as loud as he possibly can, the call to prayer, I think that should be completely legal and it should be totally allowed. However, the idea of allowing it to be projected through loudspeakers and enforcing its way through people's windows and doors into their homes is completely intolerable, should not be tolerated, and as Christians we have every right to oppose the adan being projected into our homes through loudspeakers. It is not intolerant to do this. It is simply asserting the same basic rights that Muslims would assert if I went into a Muslim street and then using a loudspeaker projected a Christian message into their homes. So that's the topic. That's what you're invited to come in and talk about. If you come in and you ramble on about something that is not related, I will eventually challenge you on it. And then if you don't improve, I will remove you. Please come on to talk about the topic, not to try and change the topic. Otherwise, I will have to remove you again. So the topic is, should Christians oppose the use of loudspeakers to project the adan in our streets? Should it be permitted?
Yeah.
Okay, guys, who wants to jump in first? And this is free flowing, so please just jump in.
Yeah, if I could. No, sorry.
Let Rob go first.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, I mean it's 100%, of course. Is it we're going to stick absolutely just on the loudspeakers, or on that topic, like halal and other issues of conscience or what is presented to?
So long as it's tangential. Go on. Let's see what you've got to say first.
Yeah, so I mean, just on that one, like you say, because I mean, surely if we are going to sit there and go, okay, we are a Christian community, this is a Christian land, everyone is of course welcome guests. If they're Islam, Sunni, Sunni or Shia, but we've got to be in charge of that. I mean, we can see issues of conflicts of different groups that are here because there is no commanding force, to go, yeah, you can't be attacking, we can't have Sunnis and Shia attacking each other in the UK if we're going to be a Christian land. So, something just like, do we oppose the calling of prayer out loud? It's like, yeah, obviously it's not going to happen. You can have your earpods on, so you can get, or you can have your phone to give you an alert, but it has to be, I think, like you always claim has to be a very muscular Christianity. There's no, at that point, there's no sit down and go, let's have a little chat about it, or see what your little council parish wants.
I agree. I think the church has to be much more bolder and confident in challenging these kinds of things. But I would stress, I don't see the UK as a Christian country. The UK isn't a Christian country, but we should definitely be pushing towards a Christian country. And part of pushing towards a Christian country is pushing against things like liberalizations, Islamizations, communizations of our society, and this is an example of an Islamization of our society.
Because you can't have Islamization, occurring because
if you want to jump in.
Oh, sorry.
Come in.
I was going to say I would oppose it based on the principle of in say Islamic countries, Christians in some cases can have churches, but they're never allowed to actually ring the church bells, which is our version of the call to prayer as well. So it'd be holding say them to the same sort of standard. If in your states we're not allowed to ring the bells, then surely it's not fair for you to do your calls to prayers as well.
There's certainly room for reciprocation. I just want to correct on the issue of the bells. Bells are not calls to prayer. But I'm
all meant to as an equivalency.
They make a noise. They celebrate the life of the church, but we just through happy accident celebrate the life of the church before a service and after a service, But they're not calls to prayer. But the thing is, there are that under traditional Islamic law, the ringing of bells would not be allowed. So why? And Christians, we should certainly be demanding reciprocation from the Islamic world, to allow greater religious freedoms. And if they're not willing to concede greater religious freedoms, then Muslims can't complain if there are greater restrictions on their own religious practice. Boy Plus, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, Rob almost said what I want, but I just want to add some few lines on it, because I think these questions or this topic relies on the country's law, because here in Sweden, even if to have a camera on the street is not allowed, even to have a camera on your premises is not allowed. If you want to do it, you have to get a special permission for it. Even the police can't have a camera on their station without a permit. So Muslims here, before they can shout for prayer or use their something loud speaking device, they must get a permission, and that is when the law is working, functioning in a land, in a country. So as you said as you said, like in Britain, that is not a Christian country. I can agree with that, because of some certain happenings now. But I think this topic, what I'm saying in essence, is this topic depends on the country's law, basic law.
Yes, I agree. And I think that is an invitation for Christians to get more involved in forming and fashioning the way that the laws are written, the way that laws are played out. Because what we've got at the moment is a situation right across the Muslim world. Christians live under varying degrees of restrictions. And, if we say that you can't project the adan, if I'm going to be accused of Islamophobia for saying that the adan should not be projected through loudspeakers, even though I've literally said that there's nothing wrong with someone going to the minaret and screaming at the top of their lungs for the adan to be carried out. But it shouldn't be projected through loudspeaker, because that is invasive into people's homes, it's invasive into people's lives. It declares a message most of us disagree with.
I was going to pick up on that actually, Bob. So I've got a relative who lives in Bristol and in a heavily sort of Muslim populated area, and there's an adan. He says that or call to prayer. It plays every day, and I guess he once said to me it was like culturally sometimes for him anyway. It feels wrong.
It's oppressive. If you don't agree with the adan and you hear it and you object to what Islam teaches, it's an oppressive thing to hear the adan, and Muslims know that. That is part of the reason. That's part of the way that Sharia works. It is the idea of suppressing minorities. Solomon, you have got to get your speaker sorted, bro. So, like, in terms of Christians just need to be bolder in asserting their rights, in asserting their own identity and the rights connected to their own identity. There's nothing wrong with that. And this goes back to Rob's earlier point about, it's not just in questions like the Adan, it's also in questions like halal food. In schools and hospitals and prisons, there are examples where main institutions are serving halal meat and not telling people. Now, there's nothing wrong with serving halal meat. Muslims should be allowed to have halal meat, but it shouldn't be forced on people without them having the choice.
Or even without the knowledge of them eating it as well. That happens quite a lot.
Yeah, totally. Solomon, do you want to come in?
Sorry?
Yeah. I think the idea of Adam and praying, I think it's a bit more work-based when our salvation is through grace. You can pray like 5 times a day and stuff, but like you need the most important things having faith in Christ. So like it's a bit more works. You have to do this, that, but you can't work your way up to heaven. It's through Jesus Christ. So even though if we don't have it or not, it wouldn't make any difference. Because I think like praying too much is a bit more prosperitical.
Solomon, no offense, but the topic, I'm guessing you're a young guy, but the topic is whether we should object to the Adan being projected through loudspeaker. So that's the topic. Yeah. So next time you talk, you need to be on topic. Okay, bro?
Yeah.
Anything else, guys? I think Solomon's probably quite a young guy.
So I wanted to push back a little bit just on a couple of minutes ago. It's completely true that the UK is not a Christian nation, as it's stated. And so there's this idea, well, we can't apply rules or social order on the basis that we're a Christian country because we're not a Christian country. But so this is the question to you. I mean, are we even wanting or needing the state to, at some point in the future, claim we are a Christian nation now? I know like Poland stated, we are a national, right-wing, I guess, nationalist Christian state, and that's from the state. But do we even want that? Do we want, to wait, we're going to have to wait or push politically until we're claimed to be a Christian nation to act as a Christian nation? Or more like I think you often push forward, we just all have to be, act like we are in a Christian nation, from our heart rather than some sort of legal position. So that was just a little bit of pushback on that.
So I think that as Christians, we've got to assert our own rights, assert our own identity, and demand that we are not treated less than anyone else. So if someone else objects to the idea of being force-fed non-halal meat, then we have the right to object to being force-fed halal meat. If someone objects to the idea of a Christian gospel preacher coming onto your street and projecting through loudspeaker a Christian message into people's homes, then we should object to the Adan for that same reason. And it's about us being more aware of demanding equilibrium in every sector based upon our own Christian identity. In terms of should we seek for the state to declare itself Christian? Yes, at some point, that is what we're aiming at. We're aiming at a Christian civilization. But the topic as this point is one of the little steps that could help along the road to that. And because to make way for the idea of a Christian society, a Christian state, you obviously have to push back against the other forces that are seeking to influence society in a different direction.
Can I slightly disagree, or move on?
Solomon, do you want to
Yeah,
on topic?
Yes, on the topic. Yeah, I think England's not a Christian country. I think it's become too politically correct. And one thing, when I preach in school, they won't allow me to do it. Like I get in trouble for preaching, and that's the problem with England. They're becoming too politically correct. They're rejecting what the foundation of England were. England was found on a Christian country, but now I feel they're starting to lean away from it. But
okay, thank you, Solomon.
Yeah, I feel like they're leaning away.
Let Boy Plus come in, and then Sam.
Yeah, according to using microphone or using the broadcast on the street, I think is nowhere showing a modernized society, and it doesn't add anything to the message that is coming out from the speaker. What I think is those things should be bound in any Christian society. I mean, nuisance on public, because if Christians continue or start to using microphone and there are speaker on the street, it will welcome other nuisance, because the Bible says, "Speak my word out, and I will defend it." It doesn't matter how you speak it. And there is a way of doing everything. I'm not against preaching on the street or on the outside the church or anything, but let's do it on a modernized way. Because shouting, or the Muslims are shouting in the morning when others that work night and they come back to get their sleep, within a short time they wake them from their sleep. This is because the Christians are using microphone or loudspeaker, and that we welcome the Muslim to shout 5 or 10 times a day, and the other people that are not Christians or Muslims are not happy with such attitude. So to me, let's bound it. No much noise. Find a better way, a cooler way to get your message out there. You can print a pamphlet and share on the street without disturbing others.
Yeah, I mean, personally, it's no secret that I think that Christians need to do evangelism in a different way. I'm not a big fan of street preachers. I think that we need to be more engaging with people. And I don't mind the idea of, banning the idea of Christians also using projection devices. For me, that isn't a problem at all. But I think that if we live in a sort of, in this liberal pluralist society that we currently live in, that if they are saying to us that we must allow the adan, then there's nothing wrong with churches having big speakers, even in Muslim areas or anywhere else, speakers outside their buildings projecting their message into the streets, because we simply should not accept being treated as second-class citizens. Solomon, I'm going to ask you to come out, bro. Thank you very much for your contributions. You look after yourself.
Imagine Jesus preaching. He was
okay. Bless him. So, Michael and Enkindled, you guys haven't had a chance to speak. So, Michael first, then Enkindled.
Thank you for having me back on, Bob. Wow, this is a great topic, because essentially, and in my opinion, correct me if I'm wrong, that when it comes to Islam, they are diametrically opposed to most constitutions of many countries around the world. So it's ideology in itself. And you had mentioned previously about the second-class citizens, as dhimmihood. And in fact, I would argue it's probably more like third or fourth class citizens when it comes to that. But I don't want to, get off topic. So yeah, I feel that that Adam is actually in essentially a call to war, in my opinion, because of how they view us as non-Muslims. So if you or I were to say, I want to put into bill and I want or put into law that anybody that is a Muslim is a second-class citizen, they have to pay a 50% tax, people would lose their minds. So and in my opinion, again, I want to tie this back in. I believe that the Adam itself is a call to war within our Christian nations, because if you look at any type of facts and figures when it comes to the saturation of Islam in a country, because of Sharia law and the dominance and terror of non-Muslims, de facto, Muslims become more and more and more over time. It's the law of Islamic saturation, I believe is what it's called.
Okay, so I mean, I would push back on the rhetoric, the way that you framed the Adan. I don't think it can be described as a call to war. It's a call to prayer. But the thing is, when it's projected through loudspeaker, it's oppressive and intrusive and invasive into people's lives, and it gives the Muslim community a right that is not established to any other religious community. If I was to go into a Muslim area with a loudspeaker 5 times a day and project a Christian message through loudspeaker on a Muslim street, people would complain. And I would argue actually that they would be right to complain, Anyway, so I don't think, but there is an oppressive, invasive element to the idea of loudspeaker projection of the Adan. Enkindled, your thoughts?
Yeah. I guess my question is, I'm kind of new to understanding how the Christian worldview, how it could influence politics, or it could influence society in a sense. So I guess I'm more in a place of just having questions, in a sense. And
you're allowed to ask a question. Yeah, totally. What's the question?
Yeah. So let's say, for example, because I'm from the USA, and there's it's a little crazy over here between the two parties. And so I guess I know a lot of people who are Christian and on the left and Christian are on the right. And so I guess in my mind, it's how exactly should our worldview be distinct from these two political parties that we have here in the USA, or can a party be integrated with the Christian faith, if that makes sense?
So, Enkindled, that would have been a perfect question for the last session.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to.
Yeah, but you did have speaker problems. So very quickly, and I'll link it back to the Adan. So Christianity doesn't give us a political template. There's not a political structure that Christianity is tied to as canon or sacred in any way. It can work within any political structure, whether that's a dictatorship, whether that's a democracy, whether that's a monarchy, whether that's an oligarchy, or whatever. It can work within any political structure. The point is that Christianity seeks to dictate the values and the narrative by which people live their lives. And it's those values and that narrative that would then go on to influence political policy. And so Christians should oppose the Adan. It is a call to prayer to a false god, an alien god, a foreign god, not the God of the Abrahamic prophets. And so as Christians, we should not wish to allow that an unfair advantage over the church, to allow Christians to be oppressed by that dill, and it is a dill. I remember going to Morocco thinking I was going to hear this really romantic sound, as it's always portrayed in the movies, this really romantic sound of the Adan sort of drifting over. And it wasn't. It sounded like an attack of the Daleks, because all the minarets went off at the same time, and it just sounded like this dill rather than this romantic noise. It was horrendous. So you imagine living in, being some Christians or Muslims in a Muslim majority area, and you're hearing this adan being projected 5 times a day. That's going to have an impact on your psyche, your emotions, as well as the fact that you didn't give them license to project that into your house. And so as Christians, we would seek to oppose that because it contradicts a Christian narrative, a Christian worldview. So I hope that kind of links in what you're saying. Now, for the rest of the conversation and Kindle, are you going to be on topic, or did you just want to ask that question?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask that question.
Okay, let me right. I'll if you want to remove yourself, then, bro, and I'll bring in 2 other people.
Yeah, sounds good. I'll move myself. Right.
If you message me, I'll give you a much more detailed answer, because I kind of rushed that answer, to be honest.
All right. Yeah, no worries. Right. Thank you for.
God bless and Kindle. Take
God
care.
bless.
Oh, where's Nada gone? There we go. Right, Nada, and then Stephen.
Hey guys, how's it going? I just wanted to chime in on the adan. I just wanted to be clear that the adan definitely is a militaristic tactic that's been used over the centuries. I can tell you for myself, sorry about that. So, that for myself, being Serbian and knowing the history, and just to know that this is a clear, there's no doubt. I don't know. It's like inherited, but I receive a visceral reaction when I hear the adan. And it is definitely a major sign of depression, and that's why it's done. They're not doing that because, oh, we want everyone to hear this wonderful sound. When they move into a neighborhood, let's say right now in modern day, into, let's say, the UK, okay, and they're doing the adan, what happens? Well, people start to move. They start to leave because they don't want to hear that. And so then all of a sudden, this neighborhood is now claimed, and they've claimed that. And so just make no mistake, any way you want to cut it, this is definitely a tactic. It's a militaristic tactic. And of course, we all need to remember that first and foremost, Islam is indeed it's a political ideology. That's what it is.
So let me come back on that, Nada, because whilst I agree with the fact that it is oppressive and that does lead people to leaving, I mean, when we talk about when we use rhetoric like military tactic, this is something that's integral to the Islamic vision of society, and Islam does seek to dominate. We do know that, but I think for me, I'm more trying to say that the way that we frame the adan, I don't think it's appropriate myself to frame it as a military tactic. It's not. It's something integral to Islam. They're calling out for people to come to prayer, but when it is projected through loudspeaker, it is oppressive, and invasive and intrusive. And as Christians, we should oppose it because, why should we, as Christians, have to endure a message we disagree with 5 times a day being forced into our homes and affecting our mood and impacting on our lives when it's a call to a foreign god? I'll let Stephen speak, and then I'll open it up to anyone who wants to talk. Stephen?
Hello, Stephen Robertson here. I think it's all right, and I think the loudspeaker thing. Imagine Jesus speaking, Jesus Christ speaking and preaching. He'll be preaching really loud, really, really loud. So I think us using amplification makes the word of God spread more. Because if we don't use any amplification, how can we spread the gospel? So I believe that, imagine Jesus, Isaiah, all these prophets, they had to shout to preach the gospel. And yeah, so I think we should use amplification to preach the gospel.
Okay, I mean, I think there's a lot of assumptions there, Stephen, and I'm going to let Boy Plus in. But like, there's a lot of assumptions there, you know, that the idea that Jesus was there shouting. He wasn't. I don't see that in the Gospels. I don't read the Gospels that way. I don't believe that Jesus was shouting. I think that we can evangelize in ways that don't use voice projection. It's like in very effectively in the same way that we see Muslims do it, or the same way we see JWs do it. We give out literature, we talk to people, we have conversation, we do the follow-up, and we invite them back to churches that are welcoming and actually give an identity. There's no reason for us to do street preaching. This is a fetish within the church, an obsession within the church to do, you know, like preaching John Wesley style, because we read we read one second, Stephen. One second, Stephen.
Mm-hmm.
We read the New Testament when we hear that Paul preached. He went into, you know, places like the auditoriums in, you know, in the Greek cities where public discourse was a part of normal life. That doesn't exist today. So I'll let Stephen reply, and then Boy Plus, and then I'll shut up and let other people talk.
Jesus said for us to preach the kingdom in Matthew chapter 28 verses 20, to preach the gospel in the Son, the Father, and the Holy Ghost. If you do not preach as a Christian, you're lukewarm Christian. Lukewarm Christian, because if you don't preach for God, it means you don't care about Him. You're lukewarm. You just don't. You have to preach the word of God to every creature, and that is the mission. Because if you don't do that, you will 100% go to hell. I've been watching this pastor, and he's not Pentecostal.
Stephen, if you could mute your mic, and I want to let some other people come in. Go on, Boy Plus, and then everyone else.
As a Christian, as we Christians, we believe that not only shouting on the main roads or on the streets is the issue. The issue is what if we are doing that we are preaching. And the Bible said, speak my words out and I will defend it. That is God saying it. So shouting on the street, disturbing others is not good. And that is the very reformation I'm talking about in Islam. The Catholics are not using microphone on the street or loudspeaker. The Anglicans are not using loudspeaker on the street. The very people that are using this microphone are the people that is after to the people that want to force other people to their religion. And that is all these evangelical churches that are there after money to get.
Catholicism is false. Catholicism is false.
One second, guys. I'm going to mute. I'm
Bible never said to worship Mary.
Right, one second.
I'm a Pentecostal.
There we go. Boy Plus. 1 second, guys. Stephen, I'm going to remove you if you unmute yourself. Okay, so let's keep it civil. If you all try talking at the same time, no one can hear you. Boy Plus has got a point that he wants to finish. I'll let him finish his point, and then other people can respond. So, and I just want to say, guys, obviously, I haven't censored anyone coming on. And I'm not asking who's Christian and not Christian. So just bear that in mind.
Point is this.
Boy Plus, did you even? I don't
think if a British government said that there will be no noise on the street, everybody should obey to it without forcing his method or this way or that way.
Yeah.
To me, as a Christian, a reformed Christian, there is no way of disturbing others, because I believe in what Christ said. He said, even if we human beings, even if we did not worship him, he will turn the stones to worship him. So there is nowhere, because all these adan and using speakers, loudspeakers, amplifier is causing nuisance. It doesn't make other people to believe in what we are doing.
Thank you, boy. Plus, let someone. Stephen, do you want to reply?
Yes.
And then anyone else?
Jesus said in Mark chapter 16, verse 15, "Go you into all the world to preach the gospel to every creature." And plus, yeah, this is why we should be preaching to every creature, because you not preaching makes you so lukewarm and not Christian. And yeah, that's what I want to say. Yeah.
Thank you, Stephen.
Hey, Bob,
Thank
if you
you,
don't mind,
Stephen.
if I could
Yeah,
one more thing, and then I'll get going.
Stephen really has to. Anyway, Nada, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I just want to add one more thing about the adan, and then give people room to join the panel and get myself back to modding. But I just want to say one more thing to add about the adan. Its history is something important. I know that you'd mentioned that it's not militaristic. Obviously, we differ a bit on that. But I just want to say that there's a hadith, and I can't remember it exactly offhand. I'll have to find it. But there's a hadith that reported basically Muhammad, that when Muhammad traveled on his military expeditions, he would listen to whether a place had a morning call to prayer, an adan. And if it had it, he would leave it. He'd leave it alone then. Okay. And if it didn't, the opposite would happen. So it was that would then, I think the hadith actually says something, if he did not hear it, that gave him a warrant to attack. So it definitely is a way, and we can discuss this at another time, to actually to assert dominance, to assert what they call the Islamic consciousness, the Muslim consciousness.
Oh, it
And
definitely does that, yeah.
yeah, and it's definitely something that, and I'll have to find that hadith, but there's a hadith that literally pinpoints why. I mean, I know historically what it does. I know very well historically that it's militaristic in nature, and I'm not saying that's all it's about. Certainly not all that it's about naturally. I'm just saying in practice, in their empire spreading, if you will, or empire reclamation, that is how it happens to be. But anyway, I'll let somebody else get on the panel, and thank you guys, and have a good day, and I'll talk to everybody later. Take care.
God bless you, Nada. Peace be with
God
you.
bless you, Nada.
Nada. Share the blog.
The blog. What's the blog title again? I mean, I have I'm sharing the Patreon, but what's the blog title again?
I'll put it into the chat, and then you can
Okay.
copy it.
So make sure I have the right thing that I'm sharing. Okay, sounds good. All right, take care, everybody.
Take care. I'm gonna let someone new in. If you just bear with us 1 second while I get a copy of this. So, guys, if you would please like and subscribe to the video, and then share it with other people. As I say, I'm not filtering who's coming on. So we could have Christians, non-Christians, all kinds of people coming on and sharing their opinions. Hill, since you haven't spoke yet, you go next.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm a Christian. I was born and raised in a Muslim country, and now I'm not in there. Just wanted to tell you how it looks like call for prayer in a Muslim country. It's like a mosque every corner of your area, and then they will blast out the call for prayer either like at once or simultaneously, and it doesn't sound that good as people think in the West, because they don't always put a like person with a really good musical voice. They kind of put anybody. It doesn't sound good, and I think they're making a bad mistake, because after a while they will get tired of it. It's all at people screaming from all the direction, and even the Muslims get mad at it. They get annoyed in our country. But at first they start with a call for prayer, but then they even do their Friday khutbah in the mosque with that mic, with the megaphone blasted towards you, so you can hear everything. So I think that's they're gonna do next. They're gonna do their khutbah. They're gonna do their dawah from their microphone, and so that yeah.
Yeah. I think that this idea of projection. I suspect that there are probably Muslims that get annoyed at the idea of that deal being projected around, and you seem to certainly testify, sister, with regards to that. Anyone else want to come in on this topic?
Yeah, finally. I want to say that so people should live by emulating others. Like behave according to what you preach. We Christians were gentle and meek. In a Christian context, there should be no noise. There should be no Christian preaching with microphone on the street. It will be, it's better it's bound. We should not adopt that. We should not go back to that form of aggressive information meddling, information distributing. It's aggressive.
So I just want to come back on that before inviting Michael or Sam in. Michael or Sam, after me, because I think that there's more than one way to preach. There's more than one way to evangelize, and I'm certainly not against evangelism. Like, I just don't think you need to use voice projection devices to evangelize. But and I don't even think you need to sort of stand there and preach. I mean, preaching can be a conversation over a coffee. Preaching can be a discussion in a seminar. Preaching can be a video over YouTube. None of those involve shouting, and none of those involve electronic voice devices. Michael or Sam?
I was going to kind of pick up on that point, really, because in one of the towns near me, I think it's like every Wednesday, there's always a group of street preachers who go out into the centre of this town, like with speakerphones and all that, and they're mocked all the time, and it doesn't give off a very good image, I would believe, for the population, really. Like, we do need to just do, say, like what the Dower teams do. They just have the little tables, don't they, with just the literature on it, and all they do is they just look for people who might show an interest in what they're doing and just chat to them. That's all they do, and it's really effective. You're not trying to talk to everyone. You're just trying to chat to the ones who might have somewhat of an interest in what you're doing. Like, there are some good street preachers out there, like Jason Burns is pretty good, and like David Lynn is pretty good. Like, so there are some good ones out there.
They're rare, though.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. They're few and far between, to be honest.
So Michael, do you want to come in before Stephen?
Yes, when that's awesome, Sam, that you mentioned David Lynn, because when we look at David Lynn and say even Dory Love, when they are preaching the gospel on the street, they're in fact being persecuted for doing so, even though other people of other religions are doing the very same thing. So it's very interesting you brought that up. But yeah, I mean,
with Lynn, to be fair, he's very good at what he does.
So yeah, I think that, not all of us have the projected voice of, say, Bob, because Bob can shout louder than everyone, especially if people.
I don't need an electronic device.
Yes, you don't need an electronic device. And that was a loving joke, but. I would think that, when it comes to preaching the gospel, I am pro preaching the gospel. I also don't think that you need a microphone and electronic devices to do so. And now that we're bringing up electronic devices and things of this nature, wouldn't it make more sense for, say, if you were going to do the adan, do it in a text message, a group SMS? And it wouldn't be intrusive into other people's houses. I mean, the technology is there. Why not use it?
Well, I think just to play devil's advocate on behalf of the Muslims, it's an integral part of their religion. They have to do the adan, but it's not an integral part of their religion to have it blasted through speakerphones, through loudspeakers. Stephen, I know you're itching to get in, so do you want to come in, bro, and say your piece?
Jesus has said to me, if you do not preach the gospel to every creature, you will go to hell. John chapter 15 verse 8. A Christian's neighbor is not meant to go to hell. I'm reading 2 Timothy chapter 4 verse 2. Preach the word. What does the Bible says? Preach the word. Be instant in season, out of season, reprove, rebuke, exhort with long suffering and doctrine. What does that mean? It means to preach the word. Man, who knows the parable of the Lazarus and the rich man? If you do not preach the right gospel to people, if you do not preach the word, you end up in hell. And I can show a video to you that you need to preach the word. If you do not preach the word, you're finished. You're ending up in hell. And Jesus said, you must preach the word.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Stephen. So, I mean, I just want to point out that in 15 verse 8, it doesn't say that people who don't preach go to hell. It doesn't say that. It says, "My Father is glorified by this, that you bear much fruit, and so prove to be my disciples." And bearing fruit is about the fullness of your discipleship in the fullness of your humanity, in the fullness of your life, of which evangelism is one aspect and one part. Sam?
I was going to say, could I say to Stephen, because I can tell you're sort of thinking we have to preach any and which way, which I agree, we do have to evangelize, spread the gospel, etc. But we've got to be a lot more clever than just randomly just going on the streets and start shouting things. People then will just mock you and then tarnish you with a brush. Oh, look at these Christians, they're lunatics. And we can't have this kind of label put on us. We've got to be more sensible and clever about it. Like, genuine good street preachers are very few and far between. Like, if you want to use a good example, David Lynn is a brilliant example. He's a great street preacher, and fair play.
Go to Matthew chapter 10, verse 33. Jesus says that if you preach the word, if you are a man of God, no one would like you. Everyone would hate you.
What passage are we going to, sorry?
What?
What passage, please?
Matthew 10, 33.
10:33. And then what I'd like to do, Stephen.
22. Matthew 10, 22.
Stephen.
If you do not preach the word, people will hate you.
Stephen, you got to learn to listen, bro. So we're going to go to the passage that you've cited. I'll let you speak. We're going to go to
22.
Out you go. Okay. Right. So Stephen can't control himself. So in terms of Matthew 10:22, it says this: "You will be hated by all because of my name, but it is the one who has endured to the end who will be saved." It doesn't say that you will be hated because you preach. It says that you will be hated because you follow Christ. And following Christ does include evangelism. I don't think anyone is arguing against evangelism. We're simply arguing that there are some better ways to do evangelism than standing on a corner and shouting at people through a megaphone. I'd like to offer the final word on this topic about the adan to either our sister or to Michael. In fact, I'll let you both speak if you want to. Go on, and then.
I'm going to defer to our sister because she really hasn't had much.
Yeah. Sister, go on. You have the.
I was watching something as a YouTube pastor. He says that a lot of people in the United States, they are putting up the gospel on the billboard. It's just normal civilians. They're buying billboards and putting the message on the billboards for people on the highway. When they drive by, they can see it, and it's very effective. That's what they're saying for the West. In the East, when I was in my country, we cannot like loudly and openly obviously preach the gospel, but what we can do is we can personally go to our friend, because we're in an Islamic country. All of our friends are Muslim, basically. Very nicely talk to them. Have to be very polite and cannot just attack them directly. Then they're just gonna get mad. They're easy to get anger, and you have to show them with your lifestyle. You just have to give them an example that you are like my friends. They used to tell me. Their mom used to tell me that this girl dressed better than a lot of us. They want to dress modestly. You have to show them it with your lifestyle, otherwise they're not going to respect you. You have to do that.
Thank you, sister. And I think something that the sister has said that I think is really important that all of us get to grips with is that the sister said that in her country she can't openly preach, in the sense of because there will be some kickback. So when we oppose the adan, and people go, that's Islamophobic, we should point to our brothers and sisters in Muslim countries who are being persecuted and say to them, well, where's your objections to this kind of persecution? Where's your objections to this kind of attack on our brethren? And say, well, we are going to oppose the adan because it's intrusive, oppressive, and invasive into our homes if it is projected through loudspeaker. Michael, do you want to have the final word before we shut down on this topic?
Sure. I do agree that it is intrusive. I mean, if you are not agreeable to that ideological flavor, you shouldn't be subjected to it. So, you should have the freedom to be able to walk away from it if that's the case, if it's being preached on the sidewalk. And you brought up a great point when it comes to that whole word Islamophobic. I don't agree with the word because it's by definition, it's an unreasonable fear of something, right? Is it unreasonable to be fearful of an ideology that would subjugate you, enslave you, or kill you? It's not unreasonable to say, hey, I don't like that. I don't agree with that, and it probably needs to be opposed. And I'm sorry for going off topic, Bob.
No. I think it is all related. The thing about the adan is, if I'm evangelizing in the street, like I have done in Leicester Square, where a group of Christians, we set up a table of literature. We distribute the literature. We talk to people. We have conversations. We try to do the follow-up. We evangelize. We don't shout at people. We don't use loudspeaker. People are free to walk away. But the adan, if you're living in a residential area where the adan is being projected through loudspeaker, you don't have that choice. And that is part of the reasons that we should give to our objection to the idea of the adan being projected. So I encourage all of you, if you're living in an area where the adan is being projected through loudspeaker, you should start to organize politically to have the loudspeakers switched off. Not to have the adan banned, but to have it banned to be projected through loudspeaker. And I invite you all to get involved in that. Thank you very much, Michael. God bless you. It's been a pleasure talking to you on this and other topics.
Have a great day, Bob. Thank you for having me on.
No worries.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So, guys, we are Stephen. Sorry, bro, I'm not letting you back in because you just couldn't control yourself, bro. So, in terms of time, we've got like 19 minutes left, 18 minutes left before I shut down, which means that I don't really have time to go into the topic. But as you can see, this is the new structure that I'm proposing to do the weekly session on. And obviously, as I get to a point where I can go full time, I will do more YouTube videos. Just some news coming up. We've got some more testimonies of Muslims who've become Christians coming down the line. Organizing a debate with an atheist from Discord with regards to whether the God of Christianity is true or not. That's coming up this Friday. Then the following week, we got a testimony of a Somali Christian sister who has left Islam and embraced our Lord. We've got another brother who has left Islam and is now an evangelist in Finland, who's going to be giving his testimony at some point. We're just trying to pin that down. And some others as well I'm talking to. And also I am holding out still for a debate with Orthodox Moore. That's his name, by the way. I'm not calling him a Moore. That's actually his name. He uses that as his handle. And we will be having a debate on a question when we've agreed it, but we haven't yet managed to pin down a question upon which we both agree. It's more nuanced. So hopefully that is coming up at some point in the future. Jason Bourne messaged me in the comments saying, "Oh, I'll be there this Sunday." I don't know if he's been here, but as you can see, once again, the coward has not turned up. And we do have trolls working in the chat, guys, so please bear that in mind. But I want to stress, I don't want anyone to ban anyone on this channel without clearing it with me first, please. However, if someone is being a troll and they are being annoying, please do silence them for 5 minutes and disrupt their disruption of the chat. So what I'll do for the last 15 minutes, I'll just take questions. So if you put at Bob, I will take your questions and then we'll shut down. But I want to ask you guys a question. Ooh, don't put your question in just yet. I want to ask you guys a question. Do you like the new structure? If you do and you want me to keep using it, press 1. If you want me to go back to question and answer, press 2. And I'll just let that come through. So I would invite you guys to become Christian activists, become Christian activists for the cause of the church. See where and what you can do to advance the church in your sphere going forward. On the overwhelming seems that most people seem to agree with the new thing. So I just want to start taking questions. Let's have a look. Peace with you, brother. In Mark 8:22-25, do you think that Christ grew into his divinity due to healing the man twice? And could you hypothesize why it was trees walking? Good question. Christ didn't grow into his divinity. His divinity was certainly always there. He grew into his humanity, and how his divinity interacted with his humanity developed along with the development of his humanity. But let's go to Mark 8:22. As for why the healing, it took 2, let's just have a look. Mark 8:22. Mark 8:22. So, right. Yeah. So the one of the New Testament teachings is that your faith affects the amount of the miracle. So the fact that this person was not healed is because he had little faith in Christ. I mean, Christ took the guy out of the town precisely because the town didn't believe and would scoff at the miracle. So I think that is the reason that the guy was healed, not because God obviously can override your faith or your lack of faith. However, in his wisdom, he has had it that if you've got a container of faith that much, that's how much you can receive benefit from it in terms of things like the miraculous. So, and I think that, you see that, for instance, where Christ says it in, in Mark 6 verses 5 and 6, just to that end. So, and with regards to the trees, I think it was because it wasn't that he actually saw walking trees. He had seen something, and this is the way that he described it. So the guy was just speaking metaphorically about the fact of, I see people walking like trees, not that that trees were actually walking. Okay, hope that helps. Let's see what other kinds of questions we got. Oh, the chat has jumped, so I'll have missed a whole bunch now. Sorry. Let's have a look. So I apologize if I have skipped your questions, but the chat feed has jumped, so I will have missed a whole bunch of questions. Please put at Bob so that I can spot that you're talking to me. Otherwise, I'll miss what you're saying. What are your thoughts on Jordan Peterson's view of the Bible? I think that Jordan Peterson is obviously, he's trying to, what I think he's doing a very interesting intellectual exercise, but obviously it's not orthodox. He is addressing the question of Nietzsche, which was that, with the death of God, life has lost meaning, life has lost existential meaning, and that humanity is walking into the danger of becoming what Nietzsche said was the last man, the man that, as I've said many times before, looks at the cosmos and merely blinks because he has no sense of wonder, no sense of amazement. So he's addressing that question, and he's saying that the Übermensch, the Superman that Nietzsche was really looking for, was actually Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ is the Superman that we all want, need, and desire, and that these religious archetypes that we have within the Scripture fit into his Jungian understanding of the framework of the mind and how the mind operates, and that actually the biblical framework, the biblical archetypes fill and work best with the framework of the human psyche. And he's using, as I understand it, a Jungian framework to do that. So it's a really interesting project. But obviously, that sometimes takes him skew with off-center when it comes to how we should read the Bible. But let us not denounce the guy. Through him, many people have picked up their Bibles and started engaging with it again. God has worked something through Jordan Peterson, and God willing, God will bring Jordan Peterson to full conversion himself. So pray for him. Reach out to him. I'd love to talk to the guy. But obviously, I'm a small fish and he's a big fish. So, it is something that we should celebrate, that God's Holy Spirit has worked through Jordan Peterson to bring so many into contact with the faith and engage with the faith. And I think also Jordan Peterson is a cultural conservative, and I think he understands that Western civilization is built upon Judeo-Christian teaching, and without that root, Western civilization starts to wither and die, and to slip into the atheistic tyranny of that we're seeing today, because we have slipped into a soft tyranny. Okay, I've answered that question. Let's have a look. Hi, I am a Christian from Afghanistan. I want to speak to you about some arguments about Islam. Bro, what I'll do is I will put my email into the chat. It's coming up now. Contact me, and I will get in touch with you. So it's coming into the chat now. And I just want to say, brother or sister, welcome to the family. Great to have you, and God willing, we'll speak. And please, guys, all keep our brother in your prayers, because especially if he is somehow still in or she is still in Afghanistan, it's a very dangerous place for Christians. Okay, right, let's move on. Great to see that. Okay, so the new framework will be the norm going forward. Okay, let's have a look. It seems that a lot, right. So if you want me to answer your questions, please put at Bob so I can see that you're speaking to me, not to someone else. What are your views of Catholicism? Do you disagree with? No, I don't. I think that Catholicism, along with Orthodoxy and Reformation, all sit within the Christian paradigm. They're all working from the Christian paradigm. Different groups, different branches of the tree have better strengths than others on certain points. But I think that Catholics are fully a part of the church in the same way that Reformed Christians are fully part of the church, in the same way that, Protestant, and I'm making a distinction there between Reformed Calvinist and Protestant Lutheran, are within the church. And, Copts are within the church, Eastern Orthodox and, more like Greek Orthodox are also part of the church. I'm not denominational. I think that we waste a lot of time fighting with one another about questions when we've got much bigger fish to fry, and Christians need to get their heads out of these silly sectarian arguments and build on, standing up for one another against those that persecute us. Let's have a look. I was too nervous to tell you I love you, brother, and thank you. Jesus bless you. Oh, thank you very much, sister. God bless you as well. I love you too, in Christ. You've got my email if you want to get in touch. I am looking for a wife, just saying. So, and just on that point, Christians got to stop being prudes. Like, we've got a family crisis going on in the church because we've all become prudes, and we've stopped being deliberate about families and about looking for families, and trying to create them. And we need to break that taboo, because it's the most stupid taboo in the world. So thank you very much, sister. Get in touch, and God bless you. I think as Christians, we all should have a special place in our hearts for Christians who live in the Muslim world and in the communist world, because they are suffering terribly. Wherever Christians are being persecuted, like also in India and in Burma, Hindu and Buddhist places, we should have a special place in our heart for all those Christians who are fighting, who are living and suffering for the faith in a way that many of us just never will. Thanks be to God. Is it faith or works? What is? Is it faith or works what? I'm guessing, James, that what you're asking is salvation by faith or works? Well, salvation is by the grace of God. It is God's gift to us. It is what God does for us, and it is not what we do for ourselves. I don't push beyond that for me, because I see faith and works as being two sides of the same coin. You can't have faith without works, and your works without faith are just dirty rags. So it's kind of like salvation is what God is doing in us, through us, and to us. I am saved and I am being saved is the way of the Christian, and thinking about salvation. And I think that you can't have faith without works. And if you don't have faith, then your works are useless. When will you get Facebook and Insta easier to contact? Well, I mean, you've got my email address. You can contact me through there. btbsoco@gmail.com. Let's have a look. How does Jesus respond to Pilate in John 18:36, or to his disciples in Acts 1:6-8? Inform your view on establishing a political system here on earth before his second coming. Bro, that is a fantastic question, but unfortunately I only have 4 minutes, so I'm not going to be able to go into that in appropriate depth. But essentially, when Christ turns around and he says, if my kingdom was of this world, my disciples would fight for me, for my release. Christ also talks about the kingdom of God being at hand. The kingdom is not of this world. It is not the way that the world does it, and in the way that one has power over another and abuses that power for their own self-aggrandizement, in the same way that dictators and tyrants have done down through history. But Christ is talking about establishing the kingdom. And when we establish the kingdom on earth, then that means that we have that we should be establishing the kingdom on earth. And Acts 1:6-8, that passage I don't know off the top of my head, but when also in the book of Acts, when the leading authorities and rulers commanded the apostles not to preach the gospel, they simply said, is it better that we should obey God or men? And by that they were saying that we should obey God. When the Herodians came and said, is it right to pay taxes to Caesar or not? Christ said, render unto Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and unto God what belongs to God. But the Bible is very clear. The earth is the Lord's and everything upon it, which means that everything belongs to God, including Caesar and Caesar's office and Caesar's power and Caesar's authority and Caesar's influence, which means that Christians should exercise power, influence, and authority in the world in the name of our God. But the thing about the Christian narrative that, say, is different from the Islamist narrative is that the Islamists, like the communists and the Nazis, they promise a utopia. You know, oh, Islam will provide all your needs, and a caliphate will provide all your needs, and therefore it'll all be wonderful. And the idiots of this world buy into that and go, yeah, and they always have. You know, it's the same trick that the communists played. Every utopia, any promise of utopia, is alien to Christianity. Christianity teaches that we live in a fallen world, and the point of politics isn't to bring paradise to earth. The point of politics is to limit the effects of sin. And, you know, it's not a utopia that we're promising. That is not the reason for what we're doing. We're doing it out of faithfulness to God and by applying our values and our narratives to every sphere of our lives. You know, and yeah, so I mean, your question deserves a much longer, better answer. It's a shame we didn't get to it, or that maybe you just didn't have the opportunity, or that you could have jumped on and talked about it. Anyway, let us close with a prayer. Fret not thyself because of the ungodly, neither be thou envious against the evildoers, for they shall soon be cut down like the grass, and be withered even as the green herb. Put thou thy trust in the Lord, and be doing good. Dwell in the land, and verily thou shalt be fed. Delight thou in the Lord, and he shall give thee thine heart's desire. Commit thy way unto the Lord, and put thy trust in him, and he shall bring it to pass. He shall make thy righteousness as clear as the light, and thy just dealings as the noonday. Hold thee still in the Lord, and abide patiently upon him. But grieve not thyself at him whose way doth prosper, against the man that doeth after evil counsels. Leave off from wrath, and let go displeasure. Fret not thyself, else shalt thou be moved to do evil. Wicked doers shall be rooted out, and they that patiently abide the Lord, those shall inherit the land. Yet a little while, and the ungodly shall be clean, gone. Thou shalt look after his place, and he shall be away. But the meek-spirited shall possess the earth, and shall be refreshed in the multitude of peace. The ungodly seeketh counsel against the just, and gnasheth upon him with his teeth. The Lord shall laugh him to scorn, for he hath seen that his day is coming. The ungodly have drawn out the sword, and have bent their bow to cast down the poor and needy, to slay such as are of a right conversation. Their sword shall go through their own heart, and their bow shall be broken. A small thing that the righteous hath is better than the great riches of the ungodly. For the arms of the ungodly shall be broken, and the Lord upholdeth the righteous. The Lord knoweth the days of the godly, and their inheritance shall endure forever. They shall not be confounded in the perilous time, and in the days of dearth they shall have enough. As for the ungodly, they shall perish, and the enemies of the Lord shall consume as the fat of lambs. Yea, even as the smoke shall they consume away. The ungodly borroweth and payeth not again, but the righteous is merciful and liberal. Such as are blessed of God shall possess the land, and they that are cursed of him shall be rooted out. The Lord ordereth a good man's goings, and maketh his way acceptable to himself. Though he fall, he shall not be cast away, for the Lord upholdeth him with his hand. I have been young, and now I am old, and yet saw I never the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging their bread. The righteous is ever merciful and lendeth, and his seed is blessed. Flee from evil, and do the things that is good, and dwell forevermore. For the Lord loveth the thing that is right, for he forsaketh not his that be godly. but they are preserved forever. The unrighteous shall be punished. As for the seed of the ungodly, it shall be rooted out. The righteous shall inherit the land and dwell therein forever. The mouth of the righteous is exercised in wisdom, and his tongue will be talking of the judgment. The law of his God is in his heart, and his goings shall not slide. The ungodly seeth the righteous, and seeketh occasion to slay him. The Lord will not leave him in his hand, nor condemn him when he is judged. Hope thou in the Lord, and keep his way, and he shall promote thee, that thou shalt possess the land. When the ungodly shall perish, thou shalt see it. I myself have seen the ungodly in great power, and flourishing like a green bay tree. I went by, and lo, he was gone. I sought him, but his place could nowhere be found. Keep innocency, and take heed unto the thing that is right, for that shall bring a man peace at last. As for the transgressors, they shall perish together, and the end of the ungodly is, they shall be rooted out at the last. But the salvation of the righteous cometh of the Lord, who is also their strength in the time of trouble. And the Lord shall stand by them, and save them. He shall deliver them from the ungodly, and shall save them, because they put their trust in him. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.